Imagine standing on the jagged cliffs of the First Age, the air heavy with ash and the echoes of war. Picture a lone figure, proud and unyielding, riding forth under a darkened sky. Today, we dive into one of the most iconic moments in Tolkien's legendarium, the duel between Fölin, High King of the Nor, and Morgoth, the original Dark Lord. This isn't just a tale of swords and valor. It's a story of defiance, hope, and the weight of fate. We're going to explore this epic confrontation as told in the Silmarillion, unpacking its meaning, its stakes, and what it tells us about Tolkien's world. So grab a mug of ale, or Elmis if you prefer, and let's journey back to the First Age of Middle-earth. And by the end, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Could Fingolfin have changed the tide of history? Or was this a doomed act of bravery? Let's find out. Fólin's story begins long before the gates of Angband. Born in Valinor, he was the son of Fin, the first High King of the Nor. His mother Indis came from the Vanir, adding a golden thread of valor to his bloodline. Fölin wasn't just any Nalo. He carried the strength and wisdom of both his father and the Eldar who dwelled closest to the light of the two trees. But that strength was tested early as he found himself caught in the strife of his half-brother Fëanor. After Fëanor's reckless oath and the tragic kinslaying at Alala, Fingolfin showed a different kind of leadership. He led his people across the grinding ice of the Halara, a perilous journey that cost many lives. But unlike Fëanor, who was consumed by his pride and hatred, Fólin's resolve stemmed from his love for his people and his sense of justice. By the time he reached Middle-earth, he wasn't just a leader, he was a symbol of endurance and hope. In Ban, Fingolfin became the High King of the Nor after Fëanor's death. It's said that among Fin's children, he was the strongest, the most steadfast, and the most courageous. These qualities made him not only a great king, but also a pivotal figure in the struggle against Morgoth. His people revered him not just for his might, but for his ability to inspire them, even in the shadow of Angband. Fingolfin's leadership wasn't without its burdens. The siege of Angband stretched on for centuries, and while it brought a temporary peace to Beleriand, it was a fragile one. Fingolfin knew Morgoth would not remain idle forever. This foresight, combined with his deep sense of responsibility, is what ultimately led him to the gates of Angband. It was an act of desperation, but also one of supreme bravery. A king who would rather face death than watch his people be destroyed. To understand the magnitude of the duel, we need to delve into Morgoth's story. Morgoth, originally named Melor, was one of the Ainur, the most powerful of them all. When Eru Ilúvatar created the world through the music of the Ainur, Melkor's discordant notes foreshadowed his rebellion. He desired dominion over all things and sought to bend creation to his will, turning the harmonious design of the world into chaos. When the Ainur entered Shi, the physical world, Melor took on a more active role in shaping it. He corrupted Ardor, creating the icy wastelands and fiery chasms, making himself the antithesis of the other Vala. Over time, he earned the title Morgoth, the dark enemy of the world. His hatred for the children of Ilúvatar, elves and men, burned fiercely, and he dedicated himself to their subjugation and destruction. Morgoth's power wasn't just physical, it was deeply psychological. He swore lies, mistrust, and fear among the Eldar and the Edain. Through his cunning and manipulation, he set the stage for countless tragedies, including the rebellion of the Nior. His influence extended far beyond his stronghold of Angband, seeping into the very fabric of Middle-earth. Yet for all his might, Morgoth feared one thing: being overthrown by a united force of valor, elves, and men. By the time of the Dagor Bragollach, Morgoth had been besieged in Angband for centuries. While the Nior and their allies maintained the siege of Angband, Morgoth spent that time amassing his forces and devising ways to break free. He unleashed his fiery counterattack with Glaurung, the first dragon, leading the charge. The plains of J.R.R were scorched into ashes, and the siege was broken. This event marked the beginning of an unending war, one that drained the hope from the hearts of the free peoples. But for all his cunning and strength, Morgoth had a glaring flaw: pride. He saw himself as invincible, yet his fear of confrontation often exposed his cowardice. While he could manipulate and destroy from the shadows, Morgoth rarely faced his enemies directly. When Fölin arrived at the gates of Angband, challenging him to single combat, Morgoth hesitated. He knew the consequences of refusing: humiliation in the eyes of his servants. Reluctantly, the Dark Lord stepped out, but not without the weight of fear pressing on him. The duel between Fölin and Morgoth didn't happen in isolation. It was the culmination of decades of tension, loss, and despair. By the year 456 of the First Age, the Dagor Bragollach, or the Battle of Sudden Flame, had shattered the fragile balance in Balrogs. Morgoth, who had been under siege for centuries, unleashed his forces in a devastating surprise attack, breaking free from Angband and wreaking havoc across the northern lands. This wasn't a simple skirmish. It was a cataclysm. Glaurung, the first dragon, led the assault, spewing rivers of fire that consumed the lush plains of Ardgalin, transforming it into the desolate Aneth. The Noor, who had maintained the siege with the support of the Sinnar and the Edain, were caught off guard. Entire armies were obliterated, and the survivors were scattered. The unity that had once held the free peoples together began to crumble. For Fingolfin, the aftermath of the Dagor Bragollach was a waking nightmare. The vision of his people, elves, men, and their allies, burned alive or fleeing in terror, haunted him. Morgoth's victory wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The once proud Nior, who had crossed the Hillara and defied the Valar to fight him, now seemed on the brink of annihilation. Fölin saw this as not just a defeat, but the potential end of his people's legacy in Middle-earth. In the wake of this disaster, Fingolfin's despair turned into a burning resolve. He could no longer wait for the Valar to intervene, nor could he rely on his scattered allies to muster the strength for another assault. Morgoth had to be challenged directly, even if it meant certain death. For Fölin, this was not about victory. It was about defiance, about showing Morgoth and all of Middle-earth that the spirit of the Noor could not be extinguished. Thus, with his mind made up, Fingolfin mounted his steed Roll and rode alone to the gates of Angband. His departure was as dramatic as it was sorrowful. The people of Valar watched him go, some mistaking him for Orm himself. So fierce and unyielding was his presence. His ride was a testament to his courage, and his decision set the stage for one of the most iconic confrontations in Tolkien's legendarium. The gates of Angband loomed like the mow of some great beast, shrouded in shadow and dread. Folin, alone but unbroken, arrived under the cover of darkness, his eyes blazing with a fury that even the servants of Morgoth dared not confront. He sounded his horn, its clear, piercing call echoing across the barren wastelands of Inflicting. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a declaration. A single elf against the might of the Dark Lord. For a moment, Angband seemed to hold its breath. Deep within the fortress, Morgoth hesitated. Though the most powerful of the Valar, he was not without fear, for he knew the courage and strength of Folin. But to refuse the challenge would be unthinkable. His pride, already scarred by the long siege, would not allow him to show weakness before his captains. Slowly he emerged, his footsteps like thunder reverberating through the earth. When Morgoth appeared, he was a vision of terror, towering over the elf, clad in black iron and crowned with a helm of cruel design. He carried Grond, the hammer of the underworld, a weapon as massive as it was devastating. The earth itself seemed to tremble beneath his weight, and a shadow like a storm cloud enveloped him. Yet even in the presence of such overwhelming darkness, Fingolfin stood tall, his silver armor gleaming like starlight, his blue shield adorned with crystals, and his sword, Ringil, glinting cold as ice. The duel began with a clash that shook the very foundations of Angband. Morgoth struck first, bringing Grond down with the force of a thunderbolt, but Folin was faster, more agile, dodging the blow with an elegance born of years of elven mastery. The impact of Grond left a massive crater, spewing fire and smoke into the air. Again and again Morgoth struck, and each time Folin evaded, countering with precise strikes that wounded the Dark Lord. Folin's attacks were not in vain. He wounded Morgoth 7 times, each strike drawing black smoke-laden blood. The pain and humiliation of these wounds sent echoes of Morgoth's howls across the north, striking fear even into the hearts of his own servants. But this was no ordinary battle. It was a test of endurance as much as skill. For every blow Folin landed, Morgoth's sheer power took its toll on the elf. As the duel wore on, the tide began to turn. Volin, though swift and skilled, was only an elf, a being of flesh and blood, while Morgoth, though wounded, was of valor. The relentless force of Morgoth's attack started to weigh Folin down. The craters left by Grond surrounded the battlefield, and the earth itself seemed to conspire against the elf, breaking and cracking beneath his feet. 3 times Folin was struck down, each blow crushing him under the weight of Morgoth's strength. But 3 times he rose again, battered but unbowed, lifting his broken shield and blooded sword. It was a display of defiance so fierce that even Morgoth himself must have felt the sting of doubt. Fingoin's resolve burned as brightly as the stars, his every movement a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Noor. Yet even the strongest hearts can falter. The uneven ground beneath Folin finally betrayed him. He stumbled, and before he could recover, Morgoth pinned him beneath his massive iron shaw foot. The weight was unbearable, like a mountain crushing the life from him. But Fingolfin, in a final act of defiance, thrust Ringil into Morgoth's foot, driving the blade deep. Black blood, thick and smoking, poured from the wound, mingling with the fiery craters around them. The blow left Morgoth maimed forever, his foot permanently crippled, and the pain of that wound would never leave him. But Fingolfin's life was at its end. The High King of the Nor, who had ridden alone to challenge the Dark Lord, was defeated. His body, broken and lifeless, lay at the gates of Angband, a somber reminder of both his heroism and the cost of his bravery. As Morgoth prepared to desecrate Fulin's body, intending to feed it to his wolves, a shadow descended from the heavens. Thorondor, the mighty king of eagles, swept down with the speed of a storm. His talons raked Morgoth's face, leaving deep scars that would mark the Dark Lord for eternity. Thorondor seized Fulin's body and carried it away, soaring high above the darts of Morgoth's servants. Fingolfin's body was carried by Thorondor to Gondolin, where his son Turon laid him to rest on a high mountain. A cairn of stones was raised over the fallen king, and for years no orc or servant of Morgoth dared to approach the site, as if, even in death, Fingolfin's spirit guarded the land. His sacrifice became a symbol of unyielding courage, inspiring those who would continue the fight against the shadow. For Morgoth, the duel left more than physical scars. The shame of being wounded by an elf, an opponent he had underestimated, lingered like a shadow over him. Though victorious in the duel, Morgoth's fear and pride had been exposed, not just to his enemies, but to his own servants. The once invincible Dark Lord now limped through his halls, a constant reminder of Fingolfin's defiance. It was a moment that undercut his image of total dominance. The duel also served as a reminder of the limitations of heroism in the face of overwhelming evil. Fingolfin's courage and skill were unmatched, but against the power of Morgoth, his victory could only be symbolic. The weight of the curse of Mandos and the absence of the Valor loomed large over the Yor efforts. Despite their valor, the elves alone could not hope to defeat Morgoth. Yet Fulin's act proved that even the smallest hope could inflict wounds on the dark foe. This confrontation also emphasized the theme of individual defiance against insurmountable odds, a recurring motif in Tolkien legendarium. Fingolfin's stand at the gates of Angband mirrors the struggles of later heroes such as Frodo and Sam, who face their own impossible tasks. It is the idea that even in the face of despair, one must act, because sometimes courage alone can change the tide of history. Finally, the duel posed enduring questions for the readers and characters alike. Could Fingolfin have won under different circumstances? Was his act a futile gesture, or did it plant seeds of hope that would bloom in later ages? These questions deepen the tragedy of Fingolfin's sacrifice, while highlighting the complex tapestry of fate and free will that defines Middle-earth. The duel between Fingolfin and Morgoth isn't just a chapter from the Sillar. It's a testament to the unyielding courage that defines the spirit of Middle-earth. Through Fingoin's solitary ride to the gates of Angband, we see not just a king, but a symbol of defiance in the face of overwhelming darkness. His story reminds us that even in the shadow of despair, one voice, one act of bravery can echo across the ages. What's your take on this epic moment in Tolkien's legendarium? Could Fulin have truly turned the tide if circumstances had been different? Or was his sacrifice meant to be a lasting reminder of the hope that even the smallest light can bring? Let's discuss it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the First AG's most iconic battles, make sure to give this video a like and share it with your fellow Tolkien enthusiasts. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the rich tapestry of Middle-earth. Together we'll continue to explore the tales that shape the world of the Lord of the Rings. Until next time, may the stars of Elberth guide your path.